Welcome to the Haunted Hacker podcast. This is the first episode in quite a while, probably a couple months at least. I've taken some time off to do me for a while, but I'm glad to be back, and I couldn't think of a better way to kick it off than with my buddy Max Justice. Max, for those of the people listening that don't know who you are, who haven't heard this podcast before, give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do, and just who Max is.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Very thankful and humbled every time I get asked to come back. I'm actually really glad you're back. It's such a pleasure to see you again. So my name is Max Justice, aka the Cyber Farmer. I call myself the Cyber Farmer because this is my farm. And I am actually putting a lot of technology into my farm. And in agriculture, we don't take cybersecurity important. We don't make it important enough. And I'm here to educate all the other farmers, even the Mennonite that I'm working with, to help them secure their technology and their infrastructure.
Very cool. Almost didn't unmute myself there for a second. So yeah, it's been a while, and we've had a couple podcasts that we've talked about everything from mushroom farming to alien life forms to AI to all kinds of great stuff. But what I find really cool is the stuff we talked about previously that's come to fruition since we've spoke, like the whole chat GPT and all the things that have occurred since then with chat GPT. It's really cool to see that stuff come out of a conversation to like fruition.
Right. I keep reminding people that we live in a time when things are changing so quickly that we actually need to be aware of not just the people directly around us, but the people all over this planet. I, for one, back in your days when you were working in three-letter agencies, you ever come across Peter Zahan? He's a geopolitical strategist.
Yes, I've run across some of his papers.
Oh yeah, and well, he's put out a few books now, and his current one, it's phenomenal. And if you want to talk about a guy who can really predict the future kind of thing, Peter Zahan, I highly encourage you to listen to it. His book is called The End of the World is Near and It's Not as Bad as We Know It. It's really phenomenal because it takes into account the entire world and the political strife, turmoil, application, anxiety, and everything else around politics. He takes that into account, and really we have to take that into account, especially in cybersecurity. But I tell people, even as a mushroom farmer, I listen to this guy because there's a couple of things that's really helped me understand that mushroom farming is the way to go, and we need more mushroom farmers.
Right.
And one of the reasons why is China. And you've probably been aware of what's all going on with China. And they're imploding. And even though there's a lot of bickering on the news about China, they had 30 or almost 4 decades of one-child policy.
Right.
Then come to find out just a few months ago, this year, they announced that, we overcounted our population by 100 million. Right. And most of it was women. So, and then all of this one-child policy that they had, well, Chinese men want more men. Right. So they aborted a whole bunch of women. So they already had that going against them as well. Then they undercounted. It's a mess. Apple, they're pulling out. If anybody that wants an Apple iPhone, you better get it now, because 6 months from now you're going to have a hard time getting it.
Exactly.
And But back to mushroom farming, 80% of the world's 80% of the world's mushrooms come from China.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Wow.
And with deglobalization, guess what market's going to open up?
Right.
And mushroom farming, we're looking at a 9% year-over-year growth for the next decade plus. 9% growth, that's huge.
It's crazy.
So we need more mushroom farmers. And so if you look at the US population, there's like what 385 million, 365 million, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Of that population, only 2% are farmers. And that 2% feeds the other 98%. But of that 2%, 2% of them are mushroom farmers.
Right.
So a really small community. In fact, just up not too far, it's about 2.5, 3 hour drive away. Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, is the mushroom capital of the US. And over here, I'm in central PA, right on the Mason-Dixon line.
Mm.
And really, there's not a whole lot of competition here. I do have a couple other people, but like the quality of our mushrooms is so exceptional,
Right.
that there was one mushroom farmer, and I hate to say they went out of business because they weren't delivering the goods. And much like in IT and technology, and I got a Lean Six Sigma black belt. Anybody can go to my LinkedIn profile, see all the other stuff. But that all comes to play in mushroom farming, and I'm working with 3 universities to put AI into my chicken coop and into my mushroom farm. In fact, I just took a whole bunch of pictures today of, we have these grow blocks.
So would you say that you're like the godfather of mushrooming? I kind of like the terminology.
There are a couple of goats in this industry that I would easily bow to. But I'm probably up in the upper echelon of what we're doing and what we're going to make happen.
That's cool.
So we just had on what was it? It was 3 weeks ago. We had our grand opening.
Mm.
Had 1,000 people step foot on my farm here.
Wow.
I have parking attendants, and they counted 500 vehicles. Then everybody had at least 2 people in a car. Hardly anybody came 1 per. And in the Mennonite community, well, they come in a van, and they come stuffed in a van. In fact, this one family I deal with, first time I met them, they open up doors, and out comes one by one. Like, where's the end? I mean, they had like 13 of them in there, I think it was. It was nuts. And that's the way they travel.
Right.
So a whole bunch of people were really stuffed in cars. We had enough food to feed 600 people, and we had 3 chefs. They freaking all were out of food in like 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and we started serving at 4, and the last chef started serving at 5, and by 5:30 there was no more food.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So next year we're gonna make it an annual event, because I had a dozen vendors, and everybody asked the same question: "You're doing this again next year, right?" So my wife and I said, "Yeah, definitely," and we started talking to all the vendors that night, and everybody was in, and we've talked to them multiple times since. They're all in for next year.
Like a mushroom festival.
Kind of.
That'd be cool.
And this is going to be the Agriculture Innovation Fest, because we're innovating farming, not just mushrooms.
Right.
And so I've got artificial intelligence into my chicken coop. I'm working with another university to do that. And then I'm working with another university. Those silos over my head,
Mhm.
well, I don't call those silos anymore. Those are thermal batteries.
ICBMs.
Right. But now these thermal batteries, I'm working with a couple of universities, and those are going to be my heat batteries, heat and cold battery, and it's going to heat and cool all of my barns and my house.
That's so awesome.
And I got a big compost pile in this barn on the end.
Mhm.
Well, next year for next winter, I'm going to put in heat collection. I forget what they're called, but it's sleeves of steel, basically.
Oh,
It's really thin,
mhm.
but they're like radiators, and they absorb the heat from the compost, which then goes to whatever liquid I put in, and then I'll do radiant floor heating
That's awesome.
in my compost. Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked about that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just there's so much stuff going on here.
Sounds like you're pretty prepared for the collapse of the financial industry and China to invade Taiwan. I was just listening to Joe Rogan's podcast earlier with Mike Baker. He's a former CIA agent,
Right,
British CIA, and it was really funny because he was talking about electric cars because Joe Rogan drives a Tesla, right? And this is one thing I didn't think of. Why hasn't America really jumped onto the electrical car and that whole idea and really pushed it? Good reason why is because 90% of what goes into those batteries, the minerals and everything else, is mined in China. So they have a lockdown pretty much on the processing and the mining of those minerals. So it was really interesting to hear Mike Baker talk about, the uprising of China and what we should be looking at and fearing. And, agriculture was one of them. We get a lot of our agriculture and food supply from China. So it's,
correct.
we've got to start developing our own independence somewhere.
And like we were saying, mushrooms. We get a lot of mushrooms from China.
Yeah.
I'm going to capitalize on that. And the more I learn about mushrooms,
Mhm.
the more similarities I find to humans, as well as more similarities I find to cybersecurity. No, hold on here a second. Somebody's trying to call me. Sorry about that. So, anyway, the similarities between cybersecurity and mushrooms and farming, they're numerous. It's just unreal. And as we put in the IoT of everything,
Mhm.
agriculture is going to have to really think about cybersecurity, because if they don't, this technology is going to fail, and you and I know darn well that if somebody's built it, it will fail.
Right. Well, not only that,
So,
but you look at the risk of you hook up an entire food processing plant, right? And you look at some of the gauges and some of the IoT. Like I have friends that they have their own greenhouses and they hook everything up to Raspberry Pis and run everything remotely through the internet, and everything's watered and light and everything, right? Well, look at that on a larger scale and look at the risk that poses to our nation's food supply when you have other people from foreign actors, malicious actors getting into those large industrial IoT devices that control that food processing.
right. Yeah. It's and this is what everyone pretty much has to count for and think about in the future, because technology is going to be in everything, and we're going to need to have ethical parameters for our AI,
Right.
because things for sure there will be a lot of fake. Well, there's going to be an attempt for a lot of fake data, but we already have AI checkers that can look at a document and say, hey, that was written most likely by AI.
Right.
So I think that will become more inclusive in artificial intelligence as they build, like in Word and so on.
The thing
AI
the thing I'm more
will
concerned,
say, hey,
yeah, and the thing I'm more concerned with AI is the kind of like the poisoning of AI, right? So, like recently we had the problem with Chat GPT leaning a little to a specific side, left or right, in its responses.
"Hmm,
And there's a question about that. Who's controlling that, and why is that narrative being controlled? That this is supposed to be artificial intelligence, supposed to learn. It shouldn't be learning a biased point of view. But then, we talked in previous episodes about what happens when AI gets into the wrong hands, and that question actually hit DC. And DC is like, wait a minute, we should probably take a look at AI and start a commission on this, because it does have ramifications, it does have power. I've seen it with people who are writing shell code and using Chat GPT to write shell code. So I mean, there are things that AI is starting to open up for people, and we're starting to see some of just the tip of the iceberg for that. But already the government's freaking out about, wait a minute, this gets in the wrong hands, quote unquote, they're on somebody's hands other than theirs, there's going to be a problem. And I think that's what we're going to face, is that fight over where does AI belong, who controls the AI.
um, those are all great questions. And the AI is only as good as the data which it's built on.
Mhm.
So, but if the data is fictitious, then you're going to have a fictitious AI model. And the so our data sets have to be clean. We going in, and then we have to be able to have to be able to validate that data. And people are just not doing that, unfortunately.
No, that and using, I thought the most interesting part of it for me was using Chat GPT to return biased information based on political preference of the person controlling the AI. And that was shocking when somebody went out and asked Chat GPT something and returned back kind of a liberal view and data, and excluded everything else from the conservative side. I thought that was pretty eye-opening. Like, we're to that point where we're starting to use AI to battle politics now too.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we're going to absolutely have to account for it, because I wish we could say that we're going to get rid of bias. We're
Mm,
not.
no.
We have to have that come to Jesus understanding that there's bad actors, there's biased data, and that not all AI is good AI. Some AI is very good
Right.
AI. It, it's almost like a person that when they go to the grocery store, if they're not looking at the label, they don't care what it is that they're eating,
Right.
then they're going to turn into the way they turn into.
Right.
They don't care about what's going in. Same with your data. If you have to care about what's going in your data, and be able to always say, yes, that is in fact the data. So like crypto, I think that's going to be here to stay. Even with quantum, we'll just have a different form of crypto.
Right. So what do you think about the centralized digital currency system that there's kind of chatter about from the Federal Reserve and US government?
Everything, well, every government wants their money.
Right.
So at some point in time, they're going to win. They're going to get their money. It's going to happen.
Right.
I would prefer that we hold off on it as much as possible. But you're talking about technology and its bias, or excuse me, the data and bias,
Mm.
and the left leaning. Unfortunately, if you look through anything that's technology, and even management's a form of technology,
Mhm.
advancements are always left leaning.
Right. Right.
If they weren't, they would be conservative, hence right leaning.
Right.
So tech, we have to understand that there's going to be some bias, and having a way to, we can't become reliant on AI. That's first and foremost. If people start saying, "Oh, I let Chat GTP do that," well, okay, they're a cupcake. Did you read the ingredients?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and Chat GPT, like I've seen people use it for papers and writing legal letters to, let's say someone they're suing, or writing legal documentation. It's really good at writing documentation based on other templates and past forms or whatever. But I'm still not sold on the idea of Chat GPT yet. I still think it's kind of like a trend and kind of a fad for right now. But I feel like it has the capability of really making some advances if it's handled correctly. But if it has the history of any other technology, it's probably not going to be handled correctly the first time, and later we'll get a second iteration of something better. But I think right now it's just kind of like everybody's kind of scratching their heads going, exactly what do we do with this, and how do we control this? And I think it's a good exercise for the US and for industry.
I would say Pandora's out of the box. Controlling it, that's going to be very difficult.
It's gonna be a fight.
Oh, absolutely. And I know if somebody wanted to control my AI, we're going to be duking it out. Yeah,
Right.
because my AI is going to be built based upon my morals, principles, values, and I'm going to have scientific proof. But even scientific proof is in itself a cult. So,
Exactly.
what cult are you going to belong to that your AI is going to socialize with?
That brings up a really good point too, believing science, right? So I think during the pandemic, the believe the science, the mantra has suffered a few damaging blows. So I think that selling people on science now, like I'm the type of person, I love science, and that's always been one of my things in school was science. But I'm one of those people that I'll believe it, but I also want to toy with it. I want to see it work, right? I want to see experiment blow up if it doesn't work. But there are people out there, like you said, who won't understand the science and will just believe whatever is fed to them. And I think that's where the real issue with AI comes into play, is people with not the capability of being able to understand it trying to manipulate it. And I think that's dangerous within itself.
Yeah, it's way dangerous, because unfortunately our next election is going to be greatly influenced on AI.
It'll be a powder keg too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, with everything going on now with the Russian war and Trump being indicted, and just the craziness and the environment being so unstable, I think the 2024 election is going to be a powder keg. It's going to be chaos.
And they're not going to get any better.
No.
There's, it's actually kind of one reason why I have my farm where I have my farm and why I'm farming.
Right.
Because I have two mountain ranges between me and that powder keg.
Right.
And we both know that there are people that have their sights on that white building.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not that I believe that the end of the world is here or coming. Although I am, dude, I tell you about my coffin?
No.
Oh, so it's not quite done yet, but I am going to be the first mass producer of 100% sustainable, biodegradable, organic coffins.
I want one.
Thank you very much. My most expensive one will be $1,500.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
And also, so we're in a whole bunch of farmers markets down in DC, as well as in Maryland.
Tyson's Corner.
Well, so we're in the Upper Central.
Nice.
So I'm going to make coffins for dogs and cats.
Oh, nice.
And I'm gonna sell them for like $200 for cat size, $300 for a big dog size, and I'll sell those all darn day long in Yuppie.
Very
So
cool.
I'm pretty excited about that. And it's all made out of hemp and mycelium. That's it.
Nice.
And so we have mine is growing right now,
Mhm.
and it's not quite done. Right around the edge of the lip, it we didn't quite do it right, but it grew throughout the mold perfect. And then the lid didn't quite come out
Wow.
perfect. So because it's living material, we just tore it all up, repacked it all in, and it'll be ready in a couple of days.
That's
So
awesome.
we're going to be able to, once we get our oven in. So I got to put electric in to get an oven in, and so much other stuff. But the we are making alternatives to bricks, concrete, insulation, and coffins, all using the exact same process as growing mushrooms. Another reason why we need more mushroom growers, because we can't afford to keep making uh, plastic for the boxes that we ship
Right.
things in,
Right.
right? It's just we're destroying the land by doing
Plus, it's toxic.
that. Exactly. So we can grow these, grow anything into a particular mold, any shape, size, or form, in like 5 days. And then we take it to the oven, we cook it at 180 degrees for 3 hours, and it's done.
So if I made you a mold of a skull, you'll be able to grow the mycelium through that mold and create me a mushroom skull.
In fact, so I have a mold of a morel mushroom, but it's supposed to be for a wax candle.
Mhm.
I'm going to stuff that mold with my living material, and I'm going to pop it out. It's going to look like a mushroom, and it'll be made out of mycelium and hemp, or mycelium and hemp. Yeah.
Nice.
And so, I mean, I can make anything, a skull, it, anything that I make a mold for, and that I can put an oven around it.
Right.
So, like, I can make lean-to ovens because we're
Wow.
talking about it 180 degrees. That's all I
Right.
gotta get from.
It's not that
Right.
hot. Right.
You can put four pieces of 4x8 sheets together and throw two more sheets on top and call it done and stick a propane heater in there. I'll
Yep.
get 180 degrees.
Easy. Yeah.
So we need more people to grow alternatives, and there's so many more alternatives. Plus, mushroom compost,
Mhm.
one of the most beneficial composts for growing plants, growing anything, growing beans, tomatoes, hemp, you name it. So we're actually going to grow hemp here this year, and I got a Mennonite family going to grow it for me.
Wow, that's awesome. I have to make a trip up there. The company I work for is actually out of Pennsylvania, and I should actually make a trip up there and check it out because it sounds really interesting. You were talking about coffins. I'll tell you what. Just this past week, I went to Las Vegas and went to Zach Baggins' Haunted Museum. And when you say coffin, it reminded me of the whole museum. I don't know if you've heard about it or seen it, but if you get a chance, check it out. It has the room that really amazed me. They had items and artifacts from all the serial killers. They even had Ed Gein's cauldron. Like it was super creepy, but it was kind of neat too. And what was cool was talking about technology. So they had cameras, infrared cameras in all the rooms as you're going through the haunted museum. And so they've detected like little things. They have ghost hunting equipment throughout the whole museum, and it's all connected, right? So little things will happen in the museum and they'll pick it up, and that becomes part of their footage that they archive or use in a show or whatever. Um, but it was really interesting. But Vegas in general, just seeing how connected we are now and just that whole city, it just shocks me. Like if anything happened to that infrastructure, that backbone, think of the millions and billions that we would lose just in one city. Yeah, it shocks me.
Right.
But the sustainable farming and stuff like that really, I think people don't understand how important it is. And the reason why I say that is when I look at, you know, pre 9/11 and pre what's going on right now with the supply chain. We looked at people who would stock up food and ammunition as preppers. And those were the people that were, oh, they're crazy. They're preparing for something that'll never happen. And then when the shit happened, people were like, wait a minute, maybe they had an idea there, and it reminds me of that old story about the grasshopper and the rabbit or whatever, and they're trying to get stuff for winter. But it's like the things we thought were crazy then, are actually acceptable now. And people are actually like, well, shit, maybe I ought to look about life off the grid. Maybe I'll look about my own sustainable, produce and raising my own crops and agriculture and livestock. But I don't think they understand how close we are with world geopolitics and what's going on in Eastern Europe, how close we really are to having a situation where we're going to have to rely on stuff like that.
Well, so funny you mentioned that. Again, Peter Zahan, it helps me understand the world. But with the war in Ukraine and Russia, 80% of, I think it's 80%, or no less than 70%. I want to say it was maybe not high as 85. Anyways, roughly 80% of the world's potash comes from Ukraine and Russia. Well, Russia already did their best, and they destroyed the agricultural industry there in Ukraine, and we sanctioned the hell out of Russia. So guess where the world's not getting their potash from this year?
Exactly.
So we're going to have a shortage, and that potash is used for, it's the NPK, phosphorus. And for those that don't understand about chemical fertilizer, the potash comes from, or gives us phosphorus for our chemical fertilizer, which kills the earth, ironically. And so actually, the Biden administration even realized that it's going to be an issue. They let I think it was a $5 billion grant last year for alternatives to chemical fertilizer. And we're going to have to go to a regional approach here in the U.S. because we're talking about some kind of like organic material. Now, I'm going to be making compost extract. There's also, so I have a liquid compost extract. Now they have also compost tea, but I don't want anything to do with tea because one, it takes like days to make and it has a very short shelf life.
Right.
But liquid compost extract can live for months as long as it doesn't freeze or you don't bake it, get it too hot. And it, what else? So anyways, but and you can make it in hours, not days. So it's just way easier to make liquid compost. And then you just spray that onto their fields using the exact same farm equipment that they're using already.
Right.
The nice part. And that's another reason why we need more mushroom farmers to make more liquid compost extract.
And you'd be surprised how many people, like I know at least 2 people that are toying with the idea of farming mushrooms. 2 of my close friends. One of them. I put you in contact with my friend Corey.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's several people out there that I know personally. They're looking towards that type of farming and producing for themselves. I didn't really think about things in that light to that extent until I got sick with lupus and had to change my diet and everything. When I started really looking at what I was taking in and what foods actually caused inflammation and stuff like that, because what I went through late last year with lupus was crazy. I had pneumonia, then lupus kicked in and attacked my eyes. I had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So I got really serious about, health and how do I bounce back and how do I get, the things in my body that my body needs to fight that attack. So I started looking at, the different vitamins and minerals and the different types of foods. And mushrooms were really interesting when I started researching that with lupus, because it does help with lupus because there is a neuro, I guess, side to lupus as well. And supposedly there's a certain type of mushroom, I think it's lion's mane or something like that, that's supposed to help with that.
Well, so a couple. In fact, I'm just doing a quick search. As soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh yeah, let me see what it is." Cordyceps, I'm sure, is one of them. Cordyceps militaris, and they're
Mhm.
the little tiny bitty things. They only get about yay big. And they're expensive, folks. I think we're talking about we get somebody who will buy every single pound that we grow. They'll buy it. They just
Wow.
straight up. You bring us a truckload, you bring us a forklift load, you bring us a container load, whatever, they'll take it. That's how the demand that's out there for Cordyceps militaris, because it helps with just so many things. In fact, yeah, I'm seeing that lupus is definitely one. Now, lupus, is that also like oh, so yeah, you get inflammation as well. So
Right.
shiitake is another one, is really good for inflammation. So if you can take it, especially like a blend, powder
Mhm.
blend, that's the way I recommend. But and then with the memory part for lupus, lion's mane. So really now you're looking at three mushrooms that are all really great for lupus. And I'm sure there's a couple others like chaga.
Yeah.
It has so many different antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. Um, the health minutes in chaga, it's like one of those miracle drugs. You're like, no way, it does all that. Yeah, it kind of does all that.
Right.
Hard to get. I can't even get it. I got enough. A friend of mine or neighbor of mine gave me enough for my wife and I to last about maybe a year, but that's it. And,
Wow.
it's not easy to get. Yeah. So it's you gotta know what you're looking for, and there are fewer and fewer mushroom hunters.
Yeah.
I'm not a mushroom hunter. I'm a farmer. I don't have time to be going around.
Take it through bushes.
Right. Now I do hike those mountains back there,
Mhm.
but that's because I want to go, get a little exercise and enjoy and relax.
Right.
Mushroom hunting, I don't really feel it's relaxing because I'm always looking down. I'm always focused.
Right.
So I want to go out and not think.
Yeah, one thing I learned about focusing on your body and doing the right thing for your body is it's a lot more expensive than what I thought. When you look in it, there's a science to it. There really is. So different vitamins and different supplements interact with certain things in certain ways. And I had to like really sit down and like go over this stuff because they put me on injectable testosterone, and I'm taking all these other supplements. But I'll tell you what, I'll be turning 50 this year, and I feel like I'm 20, just from the treatments I'm on. And it's amazing. Like my body's completely changed over like a 2 month period. It's insane. Um, but it's expensive. It's not free. And, I always wondered, how those people stay that young. And, I look at these movie stars and how they look so young. Well, simple answer is it's expensive for sure.
Yeah, that's actually why we started mushroom farming.
Right.
My wife, she was taking lion's mane to recover from her stroke,
Mhm.
and it helped tremendously. And it helped my brain fog. I haven't had brain fog in years. But when she started seeing how much we were paying for lion's mane in capsules, then she's like, "Well, I'll just buy in bulk, and then I'll put it in capsules." Making capsules is a pain in the butt, and you can only find like 100 at a time. Capsule makers, it's ridiculous. I'm not sure where they get the mass-produced ones, but the so because of the cost, my wife started growing on her own, and we grew in our garage. We put together two, or not two. We put together a whole bunch of pallets. So it was only as tall as one pallet high, but it was like three pallets wide, one pallet deep, along a concrete floor. And that was our first mushroom farm, and we just kind of expanded out into our garage from there. Uh, Many mushroom farms are started in the garage, and I encourage folks to do it because there's a lot of farmers markets around,
Oh yeah,
and
tons.
you can get you can there's always farmers markets looking for a mushroom vendor somewhere.
You can even buy kits. You can buy kits on Amazon for mushrooms.
Correct. Or you can buy them from me, please. SethosMushrooms.com.
You have kits?
Oh yeah, we sell grow kits.
I'll be ordering one.
Nice, very nice. I figured I'd throw that plug out there since we were on it. But where were we going? Oh, shoot! Now I forgot where were we going on it? I was just talking about how good it was for the memory too.
Yeah.
But that's a different thing. Brain fog and forgetfulness, two different things. Brain fog is about how quickly you can move, your mind moves and shifts gears and so on.
Mm-hmm.
When your brain just locks up, that's a neural pathway that got severed somehow.
So which one would Biden fall into? Sort of both, right? I had to throw that out there.
I'm surprised. Well, yeah, we're living longer. Biden's proof we're living longer.
Biden is proof that Adderall and amphetamines and testosterone works, because I'm pretty sure that's the only way they keep him in the condition he's in to make a speech and leave the podium. Adderall must be a great thing for him.
Yeah, I imagine it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, it all boils down to, if you have the money and the access, you probably could live forever. I mean, with the breakthroughs that we're having, if you've got the right amount of money, and you look at some of the cryogenic therapy, even hormone replacement therapy, stuff is not cheap. But if you have the money, think of the health. At 50 years old, I would have never thought that I would be in this condition at 50. I was in this condition when I was 25. But with money and a little bit of access, who knows how long people can live and what condition they can be in.
Absolutely. And what we were talking about, that I had forgetfulness, it was us starting our farm because of money and so on. And by doing that, by growing our own, we had that access. But money is absolutely going to be needed, especially two things. And there's two things I keep telling people. It's what's going to make, we're on this glide slope for longevity. And literally, we're like this right now, and we're about to go like this. And when we go like this, it's going to be because of two things: nanobots and 3D printers. That's it, folks. That's all we need. And we are going to live so flipping long.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why we also need to have AI and ethical parameters and so on. But then again, who's ethics and
who's AI? But we've already seen pieces of that already, right? So there's a pill that has a camera embedded that you can take that will give you pretty much a colonoscopy, just that camera, once you swallow it.
Right.
And some of those breakthroughs are here already, and they've 3D printed organs. So it's just a matter of time and money. I think with the right money, the right person with the right money comes along, all that shit's going to change. I think it'll go through. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And like what Mark Cuban is doing for pharmacy, and it's not going to be long till we're able to print our pharmacy at home.
Well, I sure hope so. And this is why, is because 90% of the medication that we get comes from China.
Which is why I don't take my medicine is food and food is medicine.
Right. Yep. And I mean, I was listening to the Rogan podcast, and they were talking about MDMA and microdosing treatments and how that's going to be accepted here shortly. But the problem again is, who are the major manufacturers for MDMA? It's China. So, this is why I tell people it's so important to keep your pulse on geopolitics, because so many things can change just from one news alert on a TV station. So many things can change.
So for all you kids out there who want to make some Molly, just make sure you got a good business case, because it's going to go away in China.
Get your right stamps.
Right.
So, well, we're about the end of the hour, Max. I really appreciate you coming back on the show and help me kick off I guess revision of the podcast. Um, Before I just, I got to a point where I had to ask myself, do people really listen, and why are they listening, and why am I doing this? So I took some time off to really like recuperate and see what was important to me. And I realized that it wasn't what people thought about the podcast or if they even listened to it. To me, this is more for me, being able to talk to, my friends like you. But it's good to be back, and it was really good to be able to kick it off with you. I appreciate it, Max.
Uh, I appreciate you, Mike, and everything you do, because of people like you, we're getting the word out, as well as many others. But it's something that we need to be fully aware and cognizant of. And this, I hate to call it a woke generation, but people are going to continue to have their eyes open, because the world's going to change, and it's going to change very, very.
Overnight. Yep. I do appreciate it. One more time, what's the website where people can go check out your stuff and order products and stuff?
Sure, setasmushrooms.com, SETAS mushrooms.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Max. Until next time, I'll see you. Take care of yourself, and tell the wife I said hello.
I will, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.